If you like this channel and what I do here, please help to support my work by checking out one of my books, available from Lulu Publishing and Amazon.com. Thank you. Hi folks, Carl James here from Electric Media Madness, and you're joining myself and Dan Ryan again.
Hello.
For Rewatchable. We're going to be looking at 6 episodes from, well, one is the finale of Season 2 of Star Trek Deep Space Nine. The other 5 are from Season 3. It's been a little while since we are social distancing, by the way, even though we're in the summer house here, but it's perspective. It's an optical illusion. So yeah, Season 3, pretty much. Introducing the Dominion, bringing the Dominion into Deep Space Nine, and this was a point where I really started to get to grips with Deep Space Nine and really started to enjoy it. I liked the show in Season 2. I liked the show with the pilot. I think you saw that from our previous video we did where we talked about the Deep Space Nine pilot. But my interest waned with Season 1. I very much got back into it again at the end of Season 1. Season 2 is great. Season 3 really holds its own. And a lot of excellent character stories, a lot of brilliant science fiction stories. But for me, it's a big part of it is about how they introduced this big bad Dominion race, which I put on a par with the Borg, and I know that'll be a controversial thing to say, but so we'll start with the first episode, which is the Jem'Hadar. Sisko takes his son and Jake and Nog, and Quark goes along with them as well, and they go on a little camping trip to the Gamma Quadrant to do like a little study thing for Jake and Nog. And whilst there, Commander Sisko and Quark get captured by the Jem'Hadar, and they meet Eris of Vorta. Little continuity error there in Deep Space Nine, because when we first meet the Vorta, they've got like some sort of telekinesis type abilities. They're able to project these energy orbs out the chest, which is something that we don't see ever again in the series after that episode with that ability for the Vorta. I mean, you don't know that, but it was something that they thought was a really interesting idea, but they never used it again. We find out about they talk about the founders being the leaders of the Dominion, but at that point we don't know who they are. No. We find out that they know an awful lot about the Alpha Quadrant. They know about the Klingons and the Cardassians and the peace treaty between the Federation and the Cardassians and all that kind of thing. Well, the precarious peace treaty at that point. And they pay a visit to Deep Space Nine, and we find out that the Jem'Hadar can basically just walk through force fields, and their ships are immune to tractor beams and all that kind of thing. And so it's like building them up as the big sort of formidable race, which is pretty much what the Jem'Hadar always are, the Dominion always are for the rest of the series, and the Federation does advance their technology, as we see in the next few episodes that we'll talk about. But at that point, they take a Galaxy-class starship, the Odyssey, into the Gamma Quadrant to rescue Quark and Sisko and the kids, and the Jem'Hadar just pummel it, don't they? Yeah. And they just destroy it, and
quite quickly, actually.
And that's it. They take Eris back with them, Eris the Vorta, thinking that she's on their side. But they soon realise from the collar thing that she had on, it was just a lock, but it wasn't suppressing her ability to get them out. But she's one of the Dominion. They think at that point in time that she's a founder. But we find out differently.
Yes.
So what did you think of that episode then, initially? Because you had some little quibbles, didn't you, about Quark and things like that?
I found him quite irritating, which I think after seeing the other episodes, he gets less annoying.
Yes.
But that, I found him very irritating.
It's probably one of the more annoying episodes of Quark, because it's interesting because they're trying to convey a message which is relevant to a lot of what's going on in the world at the moment. Quark talks about how basically humans are racist towards Ferengi, and he says to him, would you allow your son to marry a Ferengi female, all this kind of thing, And he says, well, I never really thought about it, but he said, if you look back on human history, inquisitions and concentration camps and this kind of thing, and we've never had anything like that in our history. You criticise us as a race, but we're better than you. That's what he's basically saying about the Ferengi. Which there are some valid points to that, but I would say you judge people on their actions now rather than their past.
Yeah.
At that point in time, maybe, you know, the past is true of the human race, but by the 24th century, humans are
Yeah, that's a lot ahead.
a lot. You know, there is full on diversity and equality.
I weren't that interested at the sort of first half of the episode when they're just on their camping trip.
Yeah,
I was just kind of like,
it's a story of two halves, isn't it?
yeah,
really?
I'm like, I could do without this.
Yeah.
But, and then it gives you quite a lot of information on the Jem'Hadar quite quickly, really.
But actually, it's not anywhere near as much as you might think as the series goes on. Yeah, but it gives you a really good introduction to them, and yeah, just through sort of one conversation, really. And it's not an exposition conversation. I mean, it is, but it's not a dump. No,
really.
No,
you learn a lot.
They know a lot more than they should do, really.
Yeah,
and that they're also very, very powerful because they say they wiped out a Bajoran colony as well. They killed them all.
Yeah,
you know, and that line where he says, is it? I can't remember. Is it the third Talon of the Jem'Hadar? And he says, you know, I hear they fought well for a spiritual people. You know, and Kira's like really pissed off. You know, she's like, you just wiped out a load of my people. You know, but it does set up the threat very, very well, very effectively. They're formidable. They're a force to be reckoned with, and at the end of the episode, Sisko says, you know, if the Dominion comes through the wormhole, the first battle will be fought here, and that really does set you wondering, well, what's going to happen next? Because he says, I intend to be ready for them.
Yeah,
and
well, Deep Space Nine is completely undefended. Basically, there's barely any shields.
It's a crap station. It's got 3 runabouts. It's got no. But of course, that does very much change. So we begin season 3 with a 2-part story. The Search Part 1. They're having their little conflab in ops about, you know, their scenarios, what this would happen if the Jem'Hadar come through, and how can we defend this basically crap old space station. And then a starship turns up, and it's the Defiant. Wicked little ship, it really is. Yeah, tough little ship, as it's mentioned many times in the series, built to battle the Borg, and it kind of betrays the ethos, I think, really, in a way, of Star Trek, that it's all about exploration and you know, changing, you know, befriending cultures and all that kind of thing, and I do very much like that in Star Trek, but I also am a sucker for Star Trek sort of technology, starships, all that kind of thing. Not so much the warfare side of it, but in terms of design, Defiant is a fantastic looking ship. It really is.
Yeah.
In terms of technology, I mean, they say, well, if it flies past a certain speed, it'll just basically tear itself to bits because it's that powerful. I mean, it's, for the first time, you really do see a whole new level of special effects for Star Trek. I think it's the first time ever that you see something really. There are moments in previous Star, like the battle in the Mutara Nebula in Ratakan between the Enterprise and the Reliant and all that kind of thing, but this is like swooping in there, Jem'Hadar ships go up against it. It was one of those sort of goosebumps moments for me in Star Trek, where those, you know, the 3 Jem'Hadar ships come in, and Bashir's at the helm in this episode, you know, because they're basically in the Gamma Quadrant looking for the Founders, aren't they? That's the story for Search Part 1. And Sisko's like, ready, fire, and then it's just like machine gun weapons fire, and just blows the crap out of the Jem'Hadar, you know, which takes the story now into a whole new sort of realm, because finally they've got something that can potentially fight the Dominion. But it doesn't last very long. No, it doesn't. Because the Jem'Hadar are what they are, you know, they get on board and they just beat the crap out of everybody, and the Defiant takes a pummeling, and they basically have to abandon ship.
Yes.
In the course of that story, we also have Odo and Kira escaping from the Defiant in a shuttle. Odo is acting very, very strangely because
the whole episode.
Yeah, he's found on this map that the Omarion Nebula, and he says he's drawn there. And in the closing of the episode, they get there, and he finds his people.
Yes.
Finds the changelings. No more than that for a moment. But
No, that's the
we'll
next
come to
episode.
that's the next episode. But and he's home basically, and that's something that has been a continual sort of little story arcs right from the beginning. It's mentioned in the very first episode. I was found in the Denorius Belt. Odo says, I've got no idea where I came from, who my people are, and he finds out finally, that there are others like him out there, and here they are, and welcome home and all that. And so, what did you think?
It was a good episode though. It does a lot. Like, it brings in the Defiant, which is a lot. Yeah. And it very effectively shows how powerful it is.
Yeah.
Didn't expect it to get blown up straight away.
Well, yeah. But I think that because I remember the first time I watched that, and I thought, well, they've just introduced it, and now they've abandoned it, and that's it. Is that it? Is that all we're going to see of the Defiant? But fortunately, I had read a lot. In those days, we were so far behind America that I knew that it had been introduced properly, and it had come back for several episodes, and it was, kind of spoilt it a bit for me, in terms of episode 2 of that season, because, but that's something we can talk about. It's a very strange story. We realise why it's a strange story at the end, because we have the crew sort of like disparate all over the place. Sisko and Bashir in a shuttle, and O'Brien and Dax, who were captured by the Jem'Hadar in part 1, they suddenly turn up, and it seems that they've found the Founders, and the Vorta in this episode are passing themselves off as the Founders, aren't they, saying that they are the Founders, which turns out that they're not. We'll come to that in a minute. And everybody goes back to Deep Space Nine and that, and a peace treaty is signed. And it turns out that pretty much everybody bar the Romulans is going to join this treaty with the Dominion.
They didn't want the Romulans.
And one of the stipulants of the treaty is that they're going to hand Bajor and Deep Space Nine and the Wormhole over to the Dominion, and Sisko and everybody realise that this is like a disaster, basically. This is not a good thing. You're giving them the means to just come in and do what the hell they like. And they say, we're going to have to stop them. So they decide to destroy the wormhole. Yeah. They take a runabout and torpedo it. And we do actually see it get destroyed, the wormhole at that point. You think, well, where does the series go now? Because it's all about... but at that point... We've seen Odo with his people on his planet.
Being a rock.
Being a rock and being a tree. I want to be a tree. And all the rest of it. Some hammy acting there, but there's some great stuff as well. Some brilliant interaction between him and Kira, and we've seen the seeds of their relationship as well, the unrequited love that Odo has for Kira at that point. And they talk about how they don't like the solids, human, non-shapeshifters. They don't like solid, creatures, and they don't trust them, and they isolate themselves, and they stay away from everybody, and they don't feel the need to sort of live like solids do. But then Odo finds a door.
Yes.
And it's a door that's opened by shapeshifter doing the stuff, And he goes in. There's a Jem'Hadar there.
Yes.
So they go into this chamber and they find Sisko and Dax and O'Brien. That they're all on these sort of like reclining sort of bed type things, and they're all like unconscious. Yeah. And it turns out that everything that they've experienced in part 2 is like a dream, which is a bit of a cop out.
It was quite disappointing.
But interesting in as much as it was a scenario to see how they would react if the Dominion came into the Alpha Quadrant and tried to sort of take over. It would to see how the various different races would react, how that kind of thing, and there's the female shapeshifter that Odo's been interacting with through the whole episode. We find out that they're the Founders, that they are in charge of. They run the whole Dominion. Yeah, and they say, and Odo says to them, "Why control? Because they want to control everybody and everything and that." And she says, because what you can control can't hurt you. So they set out the task of building the Dominion and conquering everywhere and controlling everybody and everything. And the Jem'Hadar are their foot soldiers and the Vorta are their kind of administrators. And so we get a very well-rounded idea of what the Dominion is at that point then. You've got these 3 races and the Founders are in charge. interesting things because they say to Odo, join us. He says, I'm not going to be a part of this. I've got my people. I want to go back with them and all this kind of thing and that. And the female changeling says, I can't allow them to leave. And she said, you're going to have to basically kill me if Odo's is here. And there's that interesting line there which very much sets up a lot of things for the future.
Yeah.
It says, no changeling has ever harmed another. And that gets repeated a lot until a later episode. We'll come to that as we do more reviews. But that's a big theme for a couple of seasons. Because of the fact that she won't harm him, she agrees to let him go, let them go. But she does say the next time we meet, I won't be so generous.
Yeah.
So they clear off. And so we've got the setup there, really. So how did you feel because that really is the point at which we've got a general idea now of what the Dominion, what it's all about, what they're trying to do, who are the players in it.
All of the setup in this is all through these last few episodes. It's been a good setup the whole time. Like they do a good job of really making you get a feel for who and what they are, really.
Yeah.
Because you don't really know a lot about them.
No.
But you get given. You feel like you know a lot about them.
Yeah.
But you actually don't really.
No. Yeah.
And then the Odo stuff's good as well.
Odo's story is really it's nice. It takes his character off in a new direction because one of the things that we didn't mention was that he was basically being booted off the station, wasn't he, at the beginning of season 3? Because Starfleet didn't trust him, they didn't want him around, and they brought Michael Eddington in to take over security. It re-energises Odo's role in the show because he's like now an invaluable player in the series because this threat is there. And he's one of that people, so he's like an outsider being able to sort of give some insight onto, what if the big threat is the changelings, you would want a changeling on your side, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
So it kind of, and it also gives him a purpose as well because not only did he meet his people, get to go home, but then he has all of that taken away from him again.
Yeah.
So he's now got to look at his role in relationship to, and Kira's a very big part of that because you can see that when he leaves with her, and that it's the big part of what keeps him away from the Founders is her. Yeah, and that becomes a very big part of the series as it goes on. Yeah.
There was also my disappointment when I found that it was all like computer simulation. I'm just watching the episode. I'm like, yes! Oh, this is getting juicy now.
Yeah. All this is going on, and it just.
Right.
But in our next episode, we're going to look at. You'll see that Deep Space Nine very much delivers on its promises. If you do it all too quickly, it's everything that's. I find that everything that's kind of promised in those first 3 episodes comes to pass in Deep Space Nine, very much so.
Yeah.
But it weaves and twists its way all over the place, and what you think it's going to do, it actually goes that way, and then it goes that way, and then it goes that way, and it just creates this whole massive story arc of the Dominion coming into the Alpha Quadrant and everything that they do. Odo's relationship with the Founders, Odo's relationship with Kira, all that kind of thing, and also some really good. Finally defining Sisko very well in these stories. He's the builder. He's the family man, but he's the builder. He built, he worked on the team that built the Defiant. But he's like, and Dax says that to him in The Search Part 1. He talks about like the admirals and all that kind of thing, and he says, I never saw you in that role. You're like the hands-on person that likes to see it through.
To see it through.
It's not like Picard on the Enterprise who just visits a planet each week and then flies off next week and you never see that race again or that. Maybe they might come back here and there, but by and large it's done. Deep Space Nine is very much about your responsibility to what's going to happen next. The problem doesn't go away after that episode. It's going to come back next week, and it's by the very nature of where it's based, it's a space station and all that. So, and I think The Search does a really good job of cementing that for the future.
Yeah, it definitely does,
It really does, Sisko's, all the characters will continue to develop and really get really iconic, but you can see finally, which is strange really for a series to leave it 2 seasons before you really start to see that. But that's something that very much happens with Sisko. I think he's a very was a neglected character for the first 2 seasons of Deep Space Nine, and it's only really in season 3 that they really start to take him forward in a good direction. Yeah. So anything else you wanted to say about that?
We've covered it all.
Okay. So this we're going to go into another 2-parter now. We've watched Improbable Cause and the Dice Cast. I mean, these are really, it's a two-hander. This is an Odo Garak story, pretty much the entire 2-part story. We start with an investigation into Garak's shop blowing up, and somebody trying to assassinate him. And it's a murder mystery story, the first part is, and there's not really a great deal happening in it, other than it kind of weaves its way all over the place. You see Odo as doing a great little investigation of it, Garak dissembling all over the place and misleading, misdirecting, that kind of thing. And but the end to the episode is a doozy, because they're taken aboard a Romulan ship, and Garak's former boss, Inar Brentane, who was the head of the Cardassian intelligence agency, the Obsidian Order, is there, and we find out that the Romulans and the Cardassians have formed an alliance, and they've built a fleet of starships, and they're going into the Gamma Quadrant to go to the Founders' homeworld and destroy it, and to wipe out the threat of the Dominion, get rid of the Founders in once. That is basically comes in the last 5 minutes of that episode, doesn't it? It's the setup for that, and we find out that the Garak wanted people to, whoever was trying to assassinate it, he did it to himself, basically blew up his own shop to mislead people so that he could bring Odo into the investigation. But Inar Brentane says to him, "Come back and join me. I can't forgive you for what you've done in the past, but I can forget about it, and we'll move forward and rejoin the Obsidian Order." And they lock Odo up in a cell, and they fly off through the wormhole. The fleet does to go to the Founders' Zone. Well, and that is kind of part 1, isn't it?
Yeah. I enjoyed it because the mystery, the murder mystery bit at the start I really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
But as it got towards the end, I'm like,
so that
really know what's going on.
So that kind of leads us naturally into the Dice Cast of part 2 of the story. I mean, that is just balls to the wall. Yeah. It really is. You're finding out about I can't remember his name, the Romulan character in it. I've got a mental brain fart there with that one, but he's heading the Romulan side of these things, and they're taking the fleet there, and Garak is charged with torturing Odo.
Yeah.
They've got this device which stops him from being able to shapeshift so that he's more vulnerable, and there are some fantastic scenes in that. They really, really are. At the point of Odo being all like flaky pastry, falling to bits and all that, Garak says to him, what do you really... And he says, home, I want to go home.
Yeah.
And he says, well, when this is all over, I'll take you back to Deep Space Nine. And he says, no, I want to go back to the Founders.
Yeah.
So we find out there that Odo, we don't know why he wants to... why he's staying. You do find that out eventually in the series. It's to do with Kira. But he wants to go back to his people, He wants to be part of the Great Link. But he won't go back whilst they are doing what they're doing, while they're being so evil and so vile towards everybody and that. And then Garak turns off the machine, and Odo goes back to his liquid state, and they arrive at the Founders' homeworld, and they fire off a load of torpedoes at the planet. And then there's no change in life signs, the planet's deserted. Yeah. And then 150 Jem'Hadar ships come out of the nebula, and then you get just the Defiant delivers. I mean, that is spectacular. I'm not a big fan of war type things in science fiction, but I am a big fan of hardware and the technology and the spaceships and all that kind of thing. I don't mind the war stories if they're cleverly thought out and they're told well, and they're telling, they're giving you a message, but not war for the sake of war. Because I'm very much against that kind of thing in the world in general, as well as in what I watch. But in terms of space battle porn, you've really got it with this one. It's just fantastic. The Defiant is weaving its way through the fleet, and they managed to get Odo and Garak. They escape in their runabout, which incidentally the means to escape is given them by the Romulan chap whose name I wish I could remember his name, but it turns out he's a changeling.
Yes, Yeah.
And he delivers that line, which is, again, no changing has ever harmed another. That's the reason why he's letting Odo and Garrett get away, because he won't harm Odo, and that he tells them that they found out about the plot, the plan to attack the Founders' homeworld, and they helped them to carry it forward in order to be able to control the outcome of that battle, which is to wipe out the, and he says the only real threat now from the Alpha Quadrant is the Klingons and the Federation, and he cryptically says, and they're not going to be a threat for much longer, which is a foreshadowing of things to come. Fantastic story, really is.
You get a lot in this one. You get a lot of Garrett stuff. As confused as I was, I still enjoyed that. Yeah. There's the Odo stuff, as you said.
Yeah, some good stuff there, and some good interplay. We see about O'Brien, how proud he is of the ship and all that kind of, his work and all that on the Defiant. So, I'm trying to think if there's any other bits. Like you say, it's packed. It's really.
You also get a feeling that the Founders could be anywhere. They could be anyone, really. Yeah. And that and the next episode. Yeah, confirm that definitely. Yeah. But very much so, yeah. Like literally if they could be in charge of the Tal Shiar, pretty much, then they could be in charge of anybody and anything, which is exactly where Deep Space Nine goes. It goes into that territory, very much so. Which you get a feel for that so that's a good segue. I mean, we can talk about that if you want to. Yeah. So the final episode we watched of these is the Adversary, the final episode of season 3, which is a bit of a rip-off of the thing, but it works. It's a plot device for them to be trapped on the Defiant with a changeling who keeps changing into different people, so they don't know who is. Originally, it's Ambassador Krajewski who comes on board. Krajewski, I think his name is, who comes on board. He is the changeling, and that build up to that is brilliant. I don't know what you thought about that. When they're trying to find out, they're scanning everybody to see which one's got the particles left on them, so they can. And it's a real sort of like. Tense moment, isn't it? Is it Bashir? Is it, Yeah. And then you think it's Eddington, which it turns out that it isn't, and then you think it's Bashir, and it turns out that it was Bashir was the changeling at that point. Yeah. And the other one, he locked the real Bashir in. That's a bit of a foreshadowing as well, but we won't go into that for now, of things to come. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on there. A lot of foreshadowing, actually, and we get deliveries on that stuff. No changeling has ever harmed another, because Odo does kill the changeling at the end of the episode, and cryptically he whispers something in his ear before he dies. We find out that is the climax of the episode. He says, "You're too late. We're everywhere." That's what the changeling told him. So the changelings are everywhere and could be anybody, like you say, and that really is that story. But, what do you think? But it's a good episode. It's enjoyable. It's quite tense because
it's more of a story, isn't it? In terms of like, it's part of the overall story arc, but it's very much a standalone story as well.
It does it in a way where they could conceivably fail and could conceivably destroy this planet and that. Yeah. And they do that.
Start the war, trigger the war, and all that. Yeah.
Because a lot of the times and stuff like this, that, like. Say in the Next Generation, at the end of the episode they're not gonna. No. It'll be fine for next week and that. Yeah. But this, like, I really wasn't sure.
D-Space,
what would happen. Yeah.
Deep Space Nine is one of those shows where, you're right. It'd be like, they'll live. Yeah. Because they're the main characters, but they probably will start a war. They probably won't be able to stop the ship in time from firing, and it
was quite a tense last sort of 15 minutes.
Yeah, and even though it doesn't do that, it is one of those shows where anything can happen. It isn't safe. End of the episode. It's like you say, on to the next adventure next week, kind of thing. Yeah. So that's our 6 for now of those, and I think they are really good choices. But people might say, Heart of Stone should be in there as well. Maybe the episode Defiant for talking about the larger arc but we didn't want to sort of like overload this too much. We just took 6 of the best basically that introduces the Dominion. So I don't know. Do you want to rate these? We'll start with the Jem'Hadar.
I weren't really sold at all on the first half of it, and I didn't really enjoy it.
Yeah.
but I did enjoy the second half. So
yeah.
I think I'll probably give it about 6.5.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I will say for those people who are watching these videos for the first time, we often find that we don't talk about our scores beforehand.
No.
We often find we get very, very similar scores. I don't know why that is, but yeah, it's a 7 for me because I think the 7 I like. I don't find the annoying that level of annoyance from Quark as you did. I think it might have been because of you not being so familiar with the characters that you've
I think,
You're right about the story. It's a weak story for the first half, but I love the stuff where like Jake and Nog are trying to get the runabout working again so they can get out of orbit and try and get help, and then all the stuff with the Jem'Hadar, it's
I really enjoyed the Jem'Hadar,
and it really sets it up well. And I think most of what's good about the score of that episode comes from the latter half of that story. And it's a whopper, it's like you have no idea what's begun here. Ares says, and that is a great setup for the whole Dominion story. For that, the entire story, you've no idea what's begun here, and you don't. If you're watching if you watch Deep Space Nine to the end, and then you look back, that's the start. What about the search?
I think 7.5 for that.
Part 1 is an 8 for me.
Yeah.
I think there's this. It's world building. There's some nice little moments. I think Sisko's finally coming into his own, his command of the starship. That's something else we didn't mention as well, is in the Adversary, Sisko finally gets his promotion to captain. So, and there's also the scenes where he's got the African tribal masks, from his cult, back through his heritage of his family, and he's putting them up around his quarters and all that. And Jake says these are the things that were in your study at home, and this is home now. So that's some real good character development there as well. They're finally thinking of Deep Space Nine as home. That's...
Part 2, I really enjoyed all the fake Deep Space Nine stuff.
But it's all the intrigue, isn't it? It's building up to it. What's going on? What are they going to?
It just they just
sets the stage really well for what pulled out by the fact that it's basically a dream sequence at the end. But still very good.
It was only that one. Well, that was the only bit in the episode that I didn't really like. I was just a bit. But the rest of it, I did really enjoy the rest of it. And then all the Odo stuff's good as well.
Yeah, the Odo stuff is brilliant. Yeah.
So I think 8.5 maybe for that.
Yeah, same for me. Same for me. Yeah.
How are we always so...
Yeah.
I swear we haven't talked.
Yeah. We haven't talked. It'd be interesting to see where we go with the other 3 because I might surprise you with some of them. But okay, Improbable Cause, the Odo Garak murder mystery type sort of thing.
That was... It's a good mystery and it's got some good stuff. Maybe 8 for that one. 8 maybe.
Yeah, it's an 8 for me as well.
Yeah,
it's an 8 for me as well. Yeah, it's honestly we do not. We do not.
I have no idea what you think of these. No. You say if I enjoyed them, I'm like, it's all right.
Yeah. But I'm not just copying you, just to prove a point that we're in tune with it. No. Yeah, it's a solid story. It doesn't get higher than that because of the fact that it's kind of like. It's basically just a bog standard story, but threaded through it is all these much, much bigger things, which only really come in the last 5-10 minutes of the story. But delivered very, very well. A good, solid story. So it's So we said 8 for that.
Yes.
Yeah. The dice cast.
I think that's an 8.5. It's good. It's I'd say a little bit above the previous episode.
The dice cast is a 10 for me.
Is it?
Yeah. It ranks amongst my like top 10 Deep Space Nine stories. Yeah. It's I love the stuff between Garak and Odo.
Yeah.
I love the where he's being tortured by him and the home, I want to go home and all that kind of thing. The reveal of is it Solok? Is that his name? I can't remember. It's going to bug the hell out. I need my book here in the... basically, the founder... He's kind of saying already the founders are everywhere, isn't he? So that kind of guts the reveal at the end of the last episode of Season 3, but we'll come to that. The Defiant, the special effects are fantastic. Absolutely up there with... I mean, there's better stuff to come in Deep Space Nine, but that is the first time... That is top-notch of Star Trek at that point in anything in the history of Star Trek. Special effects have never been as good as that up to that point in Star Trek. I mean, it was wow, really was, and credit to the effects guys for that. I mean, the battle in the Amorian Nebula is just, it's top notch. It really is. You know, the Cardassian ships and the Romulan ships and the Jem'Hadar and the Defiant weaving its way through, trying to get out. You know, and knocking Jem'Hadar ships out the way, and we see, you know, Cisco engage, open fire, all that. You know, really being in charge properly. I think it's the first big, massive character story of Deep Space Nine. Like we say, those previous episodes have been that, but Defiant, the Dice cast really sets up the kind of things that can be done in Deep Space Nine. That we can wipe out entire organisations, we can wipe out entire groups of people, fleets, No one is safe. You know, the Tal Shiar have been around since starting the Next Generation, and they're pretty much gone. I mean, they do come back later in the series, but they have to restart the organisation from scratch. The Obsidian Order never really comes back. It doesn't recover from that. It's gone. You know, so, and the Obsidian's Order is mentioned a lot in Deep Space Nine before that point. And it really is a big thing. And it also, the relocation of the Founders. You know, the Founders aren't on that Amorian, in the Amorian Nebula anymore now. So where are they? Obviously they're out there elsewhere. We'll come to that when we do other videos. So yeah, it's a 10 for me. Yeah. And like you say, maybe, I don't know. I mean, you might find that it's still the same. There's probably a lot of people who watch it say, "Oh, I don't think it deserves to be a 10," but for me, it really is. It does the job really, really incredibly well. And you know, René Auberjonois' portrayal of the late, unfortunately, now he's passed away. A great actor, brilliant actor, played Odo. And Andrew Robinson as well. Andrew Robinson, who plays Garak. You know, it just shows that the pair of them are fantastic in this. And Paul Dooley plays in Arbrantain. I mean, he does a brilliant job of it as well. So we've got The Adversary.
Yeah, I'd probably give it the same as the last one, 8.5.
Right.
Because there's a lot of suspense. It really sets up that the Founders are literally everywhere.
Yeah, it does,
And that bit is like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like, this war to come is a lot further in than you actually think.
Yeah. I'm going to get a 7.5.
Yeah.
It's a good, really solid, good story. Brilliant story in and of itself.
Yeah.
But if we're looking at it in terms of story arc, what does it set up? Where does it take it? It gets into this bit mucky sort of grey area for me of Deep Space Nine for a little bit.
Maybe my opinion will change to that.
You might, yeah. But as of its own story, it's a good, solid mystery aboard the Defiant, and some great scenes, and yeah. So I think that's it. I think that's pretty much it for what we've got to say about this now.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for joining me again for this. We hope you've enjoyed the video, and we'll catch you again soon. Take care.